Good morning. Holy shit, it's Thursday? Yeah, it's Thursday. That's crazy. I forgot I wanted to vlog this week. And so I have some clips from Tuesday and Wednesday. And then I forgot to do like a reading check-in, and I ended up filming my January wrap-up, which felt a little ridiculous because as I was doing it, it felt repetitive, and I realized, oh, because I've talked about like everything I've read, with a couple exceptions towards the end. But whatever, I put January wrap-up up. Let me know if you saw that. But I wanted to do a vlog, Parable of the Sower. I have this crappy library copy. It's like, see, the spine is all bent and there's wrinkly pages. See, what does it say? Like, damage noted, warped, water damage. So I'm playing with the idea of ordering my own copy, and if I'm going to order my own copy, then I may as well get the set, right? Parable of the Sower, and then I don't remember what the second book is called. Parable of the Sower and I don't remember, but whatever. Both Earthseed books. So I'm considering it, which is a huge shock to me because this was a previous DNF. I think I mentioned on here before that I started reading this in 2020, late spring or summer or something, like during the 3-month period that we did not leave our house. 3 months. Why? Because it was being talked about a lot as being pretty freaking prophetic, right? There was a lot of discussion about how Octavia Butler like called it. It's happening. So I was curious. And I had previously heard of the book because I believe it's one of Russell from Ink and Paper blog. It's one of his favorite books. So I had heard of it before, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. And I was listening to it. It was an audiobook. And I just couldn't. And so I don't know if it was because I wasn't focusing because it was audio. If it just was not the time and I was too mentally fragile because the book's intense. Like, you need to know that going in. I mean, it's an intense topic. It's like, you know, it's set in 2025, which is like now. It's basically today. Written in 93. And it's so funny because I remember being around in 93 and thinking that the year 2000 was so far away. I'll be an old lady, right? And then like the year 2000 hit and I was like, oh, okay, that was fast. Like I was just entering high school. And then here we are in 2022. And so this book is it starts 2024 very quickly. It goes into 2025. And everything is a mess. There's no resources. There's pretty much just everyone living in poverty. The people who aren't living in poverty are like barely above it. Communities are all walled, like neighborhoods all have walls around them for protection, and it's like a freaking Wild West situation outside of these walls. I'm not very far in. I'm on chapter 7, which in this edition is page 71. There is a new president-elect, or maybe he's the president at this point, Donner, who's, from what I heard in discussions when, people were talking about this book at the beginning of the pandemic, he's a pretty similar type leader as a president we had recently. So it's interesting to see, people divided over voting for him or having faith in him. And I'm really, really enjoying the book this time around. And so I don't know if it's because I'm reading it myself and can take it, I'm forcing myself to focus more, or if I'm just there mentally now to take it in. I'm ready for this story in a way that I wasn't before. It has all the trigger warnings, all the content warnings, but I'm liking it. So I'm gonna read a little bit more and finish my coffee in bed before I start momming for the day. My kids, I could hear them upstairs. They get their own breakfast. They watch some TV in the morning. They play, and then we start school. So I'm gonna read a chapter. And I've got the dogs here. I got both dogs here today. Yesterday was just me and Daisy. Today Chewy joined. See you in a bit. So, what book you finished? Awesome job. So Owen had been reading this book for a little while, right? Put him right in my face. Started a while ago and was making very, very, very slow progress, right? I think you read a couple graphic novels. And then what made you pick it up and fly through it the past few days?
I don't know, because I feel like I started Jinx, so I probably shouldn't have, because it's 2 big books. I wanted to finish one. It was going to take me a while to finish Jinx.
Okay, so now you're going to focus on another book that you started. So you wanted this one out of the way?
Yeah.
But last night he said, well, yeah, because the baseball readathon, right? So you're counting this one for some prompts?
Yeah, the animal.
Animal on the cover?
Do you count that is like the blue for the...
I was going to say you could if you want to.
I would not.
You're going to count that as the mascot prompt?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Good job, buddy. High five. Nice. I guess this is going to be the morning check-in from bed vlog. Because here I am, Friday morning. Coffee. Book. Checking in. I didn't read much yesterday from this book. I did some reading with the kids. I got to just over page 100 in Parable. And I'm realizing that I don't remember anything really from the audiobook experience of my previous CNF. And I'm thinking that when I listened to it, I must have had this mental block up, this guard for myself that kept me from really absorbing the story, because I am having a completely different experience. I had characters in my memory just wrong. I thought that the father character in this book was more like cult leaderish and abusive and like a bit of an egomaniac. And I don't know, like, I'm not getting that this time, because that's not what he is. He is a leader. And he's strict, but like, he's not, okay, this is going to sound weird. I'm about to say he's not abusive in the way that like I remember him being, but here's where I think I got that from. I just read a part where he does beat one of his children. So I guess content warning for that. But I must have heard that scene without like really connecting to the rest of the story, because now I'm reading it and I can totally feel this father's acting out of fear and love for his child. And that sounds really bad. To say I understand why he beat the crap out of his kid, but like, I kind of do. I'm not saying he's right, but I understand his motivations, but not saying he's right. Yeah, the whole topic of corporal punishment is, it's a cultural thing. It's a generational thing. So consider that this book was written a while ago. And then just looking at like the culture of the characters, the position the characters are in, the actions leading up to this scene, like, I get it. And it was a really powerful scene to read because, yeah, you're like, it was a really powerful scene to read because it's shocking and you just feel awful about it, but at the same time, you know, this is a parent trying to keep control of a situation to ultimately keep their family safe. So I just got to the next part in the book where it advances one more year. So I'm about I guess a third of the book read. Yeah, I'm about 100 pages in. Really glad that I've returned to it and then I didn't just consider it like, oh, I tried to read that and it was a DNF. I'm not going to join this month. Yeah. I guess, you know, second chances. Saturday morning check-in. Nate just brought me my coffee and said, I rough you. It's actually Owen's mug my mom bought for Owen. Oh well, he roughs me. I made it to just over the halfway point in Parable of the Sower. It was intense. It was really intense. I was expecting it, at least. Like, I knew that was going to happen because it's basically like the impetus for the rest of the novel. It's kind of going to switch tracks a little bit and be less about surviving. I mean, it's still about surviving, but more about like taking action, I think, because what I know about this novel is that this young girl kind of becomes a leader in her own right. Like, I don't want to say a prophet, she's not exactly a prophet, but like she builds something, a following, right? This is what I understand. So I think we've gotten to the point where now that's gonna be where the story is going. So yeah, so the scene I got through last night before falling asleep was rough. And so at this point, you know, there's a lot of things I don't enjoy or do or that scare me, freak me out, anxiety, whatever, right? Zombies. Zombies is one of them. There are no zombies in this book, but that's how I was visualizing the part I read last night. So basically, she's describing the chaos, and I just am picturing these attackers as like zombies because of the way that they've painted their faces and are just inhuman. Like the attacks are just so, they're a pack of monsters. So I was picturing it as like a freaking zombie scene, even though that's not what it is. So I was stressed. So yeah, I also I started the other day, but I had really only gotten through the introduction, so yesterday I made more progress in The Three Mothers. And so I have the library book, which I showed in my February-March like TBR, but I've decided to go ahead and listen to it on Scribd. The story goes back and forth between these three women and gives their history of the places they're from, to kind of contextualize the lives that they've led and how they raised their sons. So and because it's an audiobook, I want to make sure I'm absorbing, so I listen to a bit and then I'll kind of sit down with the book and flip back over what I've read and kind of take notes. Why? I don't know. Like, there's no quiz at the end, but this is just me making sure that, like, I'm paying attention. I don't know. I'm just making extra work for myself for no reason. But I'm enjoying the process, so that's what counts. I am having emotions. So, in this story, the characters are walking. And they're walking on the California freeway. And, you know, there's laws against walking on a highway or freeway, but obviously those are archaic laws, and so that's what you do. You walk down the highway, and that visual made me so uneasy, and then I just realized it's because that ties into my memories of September 11th, and being dismissed early from school and bused back home the morning of the attacks. And so my high school was in Hackensack, New Jersey. I lived about 20 minutes away from there. Just like, if you're familiar with North Jersey, the Meadowlands is where Giant Stadium is, and I live like right by that, or grew up right in that area. And so like I grew up, the high point in my town is called Ridge Road because it's literally the top and it's a hill down on both sides. And so from there it's just New York City skyline. So like that's how close I grew up to the city on the Jersey side. So because it was an unplanned dismissal, we didn't have our usual bus driver to get us from school to home. And so he took a route that we didn't typically take, and so we ended up on Route 3, which going east takes you into the Lincoln Tunnel and into the city. So we were opposite direction. But so here we are on 3 West, heading away from the city, just watching on the other side of the highway all the commuters who obviously were not making it into the city that morning. And so it was just the buses open the doors, people abandoning cars, and just walking back down the highway where they came from. And that stuck with me, like, to this day. Holy crap, 20 years later, like, I have that visual of just like being numb and looking out the window and watching people walk down the highway. So this book just struck me. Oliver chose this for himself as a little early birthday gift. It is Star Wars Legion, some sort of miniature card and dice game. So it comes with little figures. When we were checking out, the guy at the register was like, warning, there's assembly required. And we're like, okay, what do you mean? You gotta like put the figures on the stands? So you'll see. Yeah, so he's got figures for painting, and then there's these little chips, I guess, come into like the actual gameplay. But I think part of this game is designing like sets and scenes that go along with it, and then there's cards and dice for the actual play. And of course, Owen had to get something too, even though it's not his birthday, but we don't go to this store often, it's a little far. So it was fun to let him get a little something. This is more of a tile and meeple style game, so it should be a quicker, easier type to play. Hi, just wanted to give my Sunday morning check-in. I have 100 pages left. I don't know if you could see where my bookmark is. Crazy how this feels like a completely different book from where it started. It is a totally different story at this point. And yet it's consistent. I like now seeing Lauren, the main character, in more of like a leader role, and seeing how much her preparedness pays off, and her like common sense, her survival instinct is just so, like, finely tuned to the situation. I do wonder, her character has something called hyper empathy, and so she can literally feel sensations that people around her are feeling. So like if someone's in pain, she feels their pain. So like if she punches someone, she has to be able to like accept that she's going to feel it just as much. It also goes with if people around her are feeling pleasure, she feels their pleasure too, which was a weird part. But I'm wondering how much that actually adds to the plot. It seems kind of like a weird thing that like I kind of forgot about for a good amount of the story, and now it's starting to come back in, where she's bringing it up more again. And so I guess there's argument. I understand the argument why that's an important element of her character. Like I was saying, like if she's going to dish something out, she has to be able to take it. And so I think actually that makes an important quality in someone who wants to take on a leadership role. So now that I'm sitting here talking it out, I'm liking that element. But like last night as I was reading, I haven't read any yet this morning. It's a little bit after 9. Owen had an early 8 a.m. baseball practice, which is ridiculous because he had practice until like 5:30 last night. Whatever. He's enjoying it. I keep checking in and making sure like you're still doing baseball because you love it, right? And he is. He is. Absolutely. He's an active kid, so he's good. Anyway. I haven't read yet this morning. But last night, I'm reading and wondering, like, is it enough that she just has common sense and survival instinct? Like, does she have to have this hyper empathy? For example, if someone is suffering, she would rather kill them than feed off of their pain. And so there's a character who makes it sound like that's selfish, but she does also rationalize it as in like where they're going to get medical attention here, like what's going to happen, we're just going to leave them to the wild dogs. Like it is the best option to just end their suffering for their sake and my own. And so they're kind of making it like all about her. This other character is almost like villainizing her and like judging her really harshly, but it makes sense. So I feel like we don't really need her hyper empathy to get that point across, that like she'll do what it takes. Like it's enough that her survival drive would push her to act in that way. So I'm just wondering as I read, like, why this element of her character is included. Is it necessary? Is it not? I could argue both ways. So I don't know. Yeah, I'll be interested to see what more people think about it in the book club wrap up. So Bert, Sean, make sure you cover that. Thanks.
Good. One more. In. Out. One more. You back side. Square your feet. Out. Over your head.
Oh, sorry.
Over your head. No, put over here. And here. Belly. Last one. There we go. Head.
Good morning. It's Monday. Here we are in bed. Time for our check-in. So I didn't read yesterday, so I still have about 100 pages left. I think I could finish it today. Update on the book. I've gotten to, it's kind of throughout the story, but like now I've gotten to the part where the religion is being built. And I don't know how I'm feeling about it. At first I was thinking like, okay, this is interesting. And I was impressed by Lauren's thought processes and analytical processes and her understanding of people and what people need to hear to get them working in a productive way. And now she's walking and their group is expanding and there's someone questioning her about her religion, and it's starting to feel more manipulative, like when she's talking about like, well, people want to hear this and people need to think this and this needs to keep people moving. And then her like end goal, like her religion doesn't have an afterlife or a heaven, but she has like this long-term end goal for humanity, and it's fucking space, which like, yeah, probably, right? We broke what we got down here, so onward and outward. I don't know, man. I don't know. But the tone is starting to sound more and more culty, and like, I'm reading it, I'm like, is this Scientology? Like, with well, their god is aliens, right? I don't freaking know. I'm now starting to get kind of uncomfortable with the tone of the book, which stinks. Like, I'm not liking how culty this is, and so it switched from feeling like Lauren was enlightened, living in this community of people who aren't ready to hear her thoughts or plans, and now just, I don't want to hear it. So am I being narrow-minded and biased, or is she being crazy? I don't know. We'll see. So this book is taking place in California, and they're traveling up the coast of California. And it mentions that some of the problems with the drug that has become really popular and really dangerous, it was actually invented on the East Coast. I'm wondering, what the hell does the East Coast look like at this point, like when the story is taking place? Not only just because like she's mentioned that shit started there, and like we're only getting to see how devastated like the West Coast is, but also like, that's where I live. I'm on the East Coast. What the hell am I in for? Right? Like, if this was going down here, what would it look like? Water scarcity is a big element, and I feel like we have more freshwater options, but that doesn't mean it's any safer. So, does that help us? Our cities tend to be more crowded and closer together. So does that make things harder? We would have hurricanes, like there's earthquakes in the story. I have a feeling we would be dealing with hurricanes because they're coming up higher and higher along the East Coast as the years go on and shit gets worse and worse. So that would probably be an element. So it's not like I'm having fun thinking about what devastation would be happening here, but I kind of had to stop and wonder, like, in this world, what would it look like on a wider lens? Well, it's Tuesday now. I don't know what it is with me, but when I get to like the very end of a book, it takes me forever to finish. But I will. I'm going to finish it right now before we meet up with our homeschool group for a nature walk, hike, whatever you want to call it. I'm hoping it's going to be muddy and gross, but I'm hoping it's not icy. I should say also that I already have Parable of the Talents. That's the name that I couldn't think of the other day. Parable of the Talents saved on my Scribd account because I have 20 pages left and 20,000 more questions. I did it. I finished Parable of the Sower just a few minutes ago. And thank goodness it's a duology. There is more to be told. The ending of this book is a beginning. It was interesting throughout this to have character dialogue that actually reflects my own thoughts throughout reading. Like when I'm like, damn, this is starting to sound like a cult. There are characters that use exactly that phrasing. Like, is this a cult or something? Like, what are you talking about? Like, oh, here she goes with that earthseed shit again. But like with a smile, because like it does make sense. It's just like talking religion and preaching makes people uncomfortable, and so it's easier to be like, here she is talking crazy, but at the same time, like, they're connecting to it. And that's kind of my feeling, like my experience with religion too. Like, there are beautiful messaging of like in religions, any religion. Obviously more Christian-based religion is what I am more familiar with, and yet when you frame it as a religion is where I start getting uncomfortable. But when you like boil down to like a human experience and like, well, obviously do good, you know, do unto others as you would have done unto you, do no harm, like that kind of stuff just makes sense. So the characters are receptive to Lauren in that way also. The other thing, when I was talking about her sharing her hyper empathy and saying like, well, how important is it to the story? I'm still about it, but like I said, I could see an argument for it being that she feels her own impact on others. Like, if she's going to kill someone, she feels that, and that's important. And someone said that exact same thing, like we should all have that consideration that our actions have an impact. So yeah, it's just I like when like I have a thought and then a few pages later like I see that reflected in the characters. It helps me, yeah, connect and know that I'm reading this properly, if there's a right way to read a book. Throughout, there's this messaging of like waiting for things to get back to the way they were. And that hits, yeah, that hits home. Like, as things change, you're like, oh, once we get through this, like, it's, you know, it's gonna come back. And I feel like that's how we feel about a lot of things. And then there's the realization that, like, no, there's no waiting for it to go back and to get like back to better, there is new normal, right? We've heard a lot of that phrasing lately. So there's new normal and there's adjustments, and like you need to learn how to live in the now for the better. So I think that was an important message in this book. The very ending, you have an older character saying like, we haven't even hit rock bottom yet. And that struck me because that's how I'm feeling about the current state of American politics, about climate change. So obviously this book is told in extremes, but I feel like you can isolate elements and be like, yeah, I see it coming. I expected there to be more political representation of like the president, and he's just kind of mentioned, and you get that like his policies have worked for an elite group of people, right? Again, relatable. And then there's a reflection on like a modern day return to slavery, and they've even mentioned being on like a modern day underground railroad. I don't know, I feel like I mentioned it, but I may have cut out clips because this damn vlog got so freaking long. But the kids and I are reading a biography on Harriet Tubman right now, and I just finished reading The Prophets, which maybe you saw me reading that in a vlog or in my January wrap up. And those are set during legal slave keeping moments in American history. Obviously, you know, Harriet Tubman being a leader on the Underground Railroad. And so having those two historical books paired against this near future, very near future dystopia book, and yet seeing the stories align, it was really impactful. It's weird reading something written in the 90s and then seeing, not exactly, but like faint echoes of similarity into like the way we're living now. So I just finished. I gotta get dressed now because we're going on a hike with some homeschool groups, so I haven't yet kind of run it through that call pile rating system, but my guess is at least a 4, if not a 5. And like I said, I am eager to continue. I can't believe it. I can't believe how much I enjoyed this novel, knowing that 2 years ago I DNF'd it. And had it completely wrong. Like, I obviously was not in the space for this book 2 years ago. And now I'm really, really impressed by it. So thank you, my so-called book club, for making me try this one again. All right, I'll see you next time.